It's April 20th, 1984. Wind knives across Everest's West Ridge, shredding spindrift into silver ghosts. A clipped transmission crackles through the base camp radio. I'm on the summit. Hristo Prodanov, 41 years old, a Bulgarian metallurgical engineer with a climber's engine, has just accomplished a feat most experts called suicidal, solo, without oxygen, by the West Ridge Direct. For 33 minutes he stands on a frost-blasted crown of the world, 29,028 feet above sea level, the horizon bending like the rim of a bowl. By nightfall, that triumphant voice will collapse into a whisper. Hours later, it will compress into a single sound. One dry, mechanical click, and then nothing at all. Before we descend into that silence, let me set the stage. Quick question. What's the most dangerous way up Everest? People love to argue this. Some point to the Khumbu Icefall, a shifting labyrinth of blue glass where seracs collapse like skyscrapers. Others swear it's the death zone, the realm above 26,000 feet where your body is literally dying faster than you can save it. But in 1984, for anyone paying attention, there was a far simpler answer. Anywhere on the West Ridge Direct, the route mountaineers nicknamed the Cruel Way. Why cruel? Because it forces you into contradictions humans aren't built to resolve. Picture a 4-mile balance beam serrated like a saw, with 10,000-foot drop-offs yawning on both sides. Imagine grade 5 rock, moves that challenge elite alpinists at sea level. Only now every cell in your brain is starved for oxygen. Most routes offer pockets of mercy. A couloir here, a sheltered ledge there. The West Ridge Direct offers exposure, wind, and emptiness. A place where the mountain never stops asking, "Are you sure?" And the weather keeps answering, "No." Across this ridge walks a man who grew up with very little and wanted everything anyway. Meet Hristo, born in 1943 in Karlovo, Bulgaria. He learned early that money is loud when you don't have it. His father took whatever work steel and sweat could provide. His mother kept a home where dreams had to be small to survive. But some children don't accept the size of their world. At 15, Hristo began climbing the rock of the Pirin and Rila ranges, first with more nerve than gear, then with a methodical curiosity that would define him. He approached routes like an engineer, map the holds, measure the risk, solve the problem. By day he earned a living alloying metals. By weekends he alloyed fear with skill. In the decade between 1967 and 1977, he strung together a sense that European climbers measure themselves against. The Walker Spur on the Grand Jorasses, the Bonatti Pillar, Mont Blanc's Freyne Pillar, the Matterhorn's North Face. Each success added a new weight in his chest, a hunger that European peaks couldn't quiet. Then came the climb that cracked his life wide open. April 1981. Hristo became the first Bulgarian to summit Lhotse, the world's 4th highest mountain, alone and without supplemental oxygen. Even today, many climbers wouldn't touch Lhotse without a full team and oxygen bottles. When Hristo descended, friends said something in his gaze had changed. He'd discovered that on the far edge of human limits, his mind grew calmer, not louder. He'd tasted the thin, bright edge and found it tasted like home. For 3 years, that edge haunted him. He trained, logged data on his own performance at altitude, studied weather patterns like a second language, and waited. In 1984, patience met opportunity. Bulgaria made a decision. A small Eastern Bloc nation living in the long shadow of bigger Soviet neighbors decided to plant its flag on top of the world, but not by the tourist routes that Western money had begun to crowd. The plan was audacious, a national expedition to tackle the West Ridge Direct. They meant to show that Bulgarian alpinists could match anyone. The selection was brutal. Hundreds applied. 24 earned a place. When the final roster came out in late 1983, 40-year-old Hristo Prodanov was named deputy expedition leader, responsible for technical planning, route strategy, fixed camps, and safety systems. On paper, this would be a classic siege. Weeks of hauling loads, establishing camps, and acclimatizing. In meetings, Hristo drew the same arrows and boxes as everyone else. He spoke the language of consensus, but inside, he was composing a different sentence. His private plan was simple and terrifying. Once the high camp stood in the death zone, he would break from the script and attempt a solo, oxygenless push, up the West Ridge direct to the summit, and back in a single surgical strike. Today, most professionals would label this borderline impossible. Hristo called it acceptable risk. He had an engineer's certainty: minimize weight, maximize efficiency, stay ahead of the mountain. March 1984. The Bulgarians moved into the ice. Base camp took shape. Lines of prayer flags snapped in the wind like coded messages. 24 climbers, 3 veteran Sherpa, and enough kit to lay siege for months. Under expedition leader Atanas Arnautov, they began the slow choreography: fix rope, carry loads, retreat, recover, climb again. Early April. Camp 1 at Lohola, 19,850 FT. A snow cave for 15 carved from the mountain's white gristle. Camp 2 at 22,020 FT. Camp 3 at 23,524 T. Above Camp 3, where the air goes thin as glass, basic tasks become lab tests. Tie a knot, watch your fingers refuse, walk 20 steps. Hear your heart hammer like escape is possible only if you run. Most of the team moved with the careful economy altitude demands. Christo moved like a man whose lungs had read ahead, while headaches and nausea chewed at the others. He floated between tasks with a focus that made people step aside. On April 18th, the team punched in Camp 4 at 24,670 FT. On April 19th, Christo and Sherpa Chawang Nima pushed higher still, scraping a platform for Camp 5 at 26,640 FT. Deep inside the death zone, they zipped their bags against a wind that argued with the tent all night. In that nylon cocoon, Christo made the decision that would write his name and seal his fate for 30. April 20th, pre-dawn cold that burns when it touches skin. Spindrift, a headlamp cone, and the metronome tick of front points biting ice. Christo and Chawang leave. Camp 5 into conditions most climbers would call wait until tomorrow. But tomorrow is fiction on the West Ridge. You go on the best bad day you get. The morning route is an engineer's nightmare. Loose rocks soldered into ice, ridgeline sections narrow as a boot, fall lines that terminate in Tibet. The wind reaches across the ridge like a bully shoving. Chawang, the kind of Sherpa whose resume is whispered more than spoken, keeps climbing, keeps evaluating, keeps subtracting margins. Near mid-morning, the math goes red. The terrain steepens, the exposure multiplies, and the line ahead looks like a dare from a mountain that does not negotiate. Chawang makes a decision that saves his life. He tells Christo he's turning back. Most partnership stories end right there. The mountain has delivered its verdict. You accept it. But Christo has been building toward this moment since Karlovo. Lots in his bones, data in his notebooks, stubbornness in his blood. He watches Chawang's figure lower into the storm, then looks up. Above, the ridge knifes toward a glow that might be weather, or might be the summit's promise. He hears the oldest sentence in climbing. If not now, when? If not me, who? He says goodbye, and keeps going. For the next 7 hours, he climbs like a man trying to outpace his own story. The ridge offers sequences that shouldn't be possible at that altitude. Thin placements, balance moves, traverses that ask your calves to write checks your heart might not cash. At 11:10 a.m., roughly 1,500 feet below the top, he radios, "Steady progress. Conditions savage but manageable." Then the radio goes quiet, and all we have are images. A figure moving through spindrift, tools finding purchase, seconds stacking into something that looks like destiny. 8 to 10, the transmission that changes Bulgarian sport forever. Summit. 12.5 hours after leaving Camp 5. Alone, oxygen-less by the cruelest line on the world's highest mountain, Christo Prodanov stands where maps end. He notes the pyramid of empty Soviet oxygen bottles. He tears a strip of flag as proof. Weight matters on the way down. He removes the film from his 8mm camera and abandons the body. He lets the air take one long look at him. Then he makes the most dangerous pivot in mountaineering. From up to down, it's 6:40 p.m. in the high Himalaya in April. He has maybe 30 minutes of fading light to reverse 12+ hours of problem solving. Only now the problems are slicker, steeper, and pointed toward gravity. In daylight, descent is a chess puzzle. In darkness, it's Russian roulette. Christo starts down anyway. Christo's headlamp is the only light on the mountain now. His world has reduced to that narrow beam in the night. 28,000 feet. This is the death zone. The cold gnaws at his exposed skin, sharper than any blade, and the winds roar with the fury of 1,000 storms. There is no time to rest, no time to hesitate. Every step is calculated, every movement precise. But even the best calculations break down when the body begins to fail. The reality sets in as Christo descends further. The light is fading faster than he anticipated, and his footing becomes treacherous. As he retraces his path, each rock and ledge that seemed so clear in daylight now melts into a shadowed blur. In the dark, there are no landmarks to guide him, no recognizable features to follow, just the deep black void around him. Every now and then he pauses, tapping his ice axe to make sure the next hold will be secure. But the rocks underfoot are loose, shifting, like they too want to send him plummeting into the abyss below. He knows that if he makes one wrong move, his life will be over in an instant. Yet in these moments of pure fear, Christo doesn't stop. There's no room for fear now. It's survival, and survival means putting one foot in front of the other, no matter how the world around him twists and warps. By 9:10 p.m., Christo has descended roughly 1,000 feet, still 8,000 feet in the air, well above the world's tallest skyscrapers and far, far beyond what any human body was designed to endure. The wind is deafening now, almost like a physical presence, slapping him with every gust. The temperature is so low that even his gear seems to be turning against him. His fingers are stiffening, his toes numb, and the sense of time begins to warp as he moves through the dark. At this point, he faces an impossible decision: continue descending through the night in darkness or stop and wait for the sun. But stopping now would mean facing a bivouac, the most terrifying kind of survival at these heights. A bivouac on Everest is not like the kind you might experience on a normal mountain. Without a tent, sleeping bag, or any real shelter, it means huddling for warmth in the open, exposed to hurricane-force winds and temperatures so cold they could freeze your blood. Christo makes the agonizing decision to bivouac. He knows the risks of staying put, but he also knows the danger of moving in the dark. For the next several hours, he sits motionless in the bone-chilling cold, barely able to move, trying to conserve energy while every breath he takes feels like ice crawling down his throat. The only thing keeping him alive is the stubborn refusal to let go. At some point, Christo reaches out to his radio, his fingers trembling as he presses the button to transmit. His voice comes through weak, barely audible, but still alive. Bivouac. I cannot move. Too cold, fingers, no gloves. Help. It's the kind of message that sends a chill through anyone who hears it because deep down, you know what it means. He is beyond help. His fingers, the very tools he needs to survive, are useless. His body is already breaking down, but still, Christo holds on. The next few hours stretch into an agonizing blur. The wind screams across the ridge, cutting through him like a razor. He knows that every minute spent without shelter is another minute closer to death, but he can't move. He can't even feel his fingers anymore. By morning, Christo is still alive, but barely. He tries to use the radio again, his voice weaker than before. I lost gloves. Cannot use fingers. Cannot. His team can hear the desperation in his voice. They know he's in a fight for his life. They know he's on the edge of death, but they can't help him. There's no way to reach him. By the time Christo sends his final transmission at 5:30 p.m., his body has reached its breaking point. His fingers are beyond frozen. His body a shell of the man who had conquered Everest's deadliest route just hours earlier. But there's still one more cry for help left in him. No strength. Can't. Hold radio. And then, at 7:45 p.m., Christo's teammates hear the final haunting click of his radio, a click that confirms the worst. No voice, just the sound of the transmission being cut off, leaving an eerie silence that would haunt everyone who heard it. Christo is gone, and though his team never stops searching, never stops hoping, there is no rescue, no way to reach him in time. The West Ridge Direct has claimed another life, but one of Christo's teammates, Ludmil Yanov, refuses to give up. He hears the final transmission and makes a decision that only a climber can understand. He's going up. Yanov knows it's impossible, but his love for his teammate, his brother in arms, won't let him sit idly by. At 7:45 p.m., as Christo's final click echoes in his ears, Yanov begins his ascent from Camp 3 at 23,500 feet. He climbs with a desperation that borders on madness, fighting the mountain with every ounce of strength he has left. The wind howls as he moves, the cold slicing at him like daggers. But Yanov presses on, driven by the need to save his friend, to bring him back. In his mind, he doesn't stop. He just climbs higher, step by step, knowing the risks, knowing the odds, but also knowing he cannot leave a man behind. By 9 p.m., Yanov reaches 28,000 feet, only a few hundred feet from Christo's last known position. But the wind is so fierce, the darkness so thick he can't see anything. There's no way to know if Christo is even still alive. if he's somewhere nearby or if he's already gone. Yanov keeps calling into the night, shouting into the radio, "Don't sleep. You're a great man. You're Bulgarian. Keep fighting!" His voice cracks as he calls out, but he hears no response. And by dawn, when the mountain reveals its secrets in the cold light of morning, there's no sign of Christo. Yanov knows what the rest of the world will have to face. His friend, his brother, is gone. And yet, even in that horrible final moment, Yanov paid the price too. The extreme cold had already gnawed at his fingers. By the time he descended, the frostbite was so severe that 4 of his fingers had to be amputated. He had sacrificed parts of himself to save his teammate, only to lose him. Christo's body was never recovered. But the mountains like Everest, they take from you and they do not give back. Even after Christo's death, the mountain was not done with him. Everest had claimed another soul, but it also left behind a haunting story, one that would remain unfinished for decades. Yet, as tragic as Christo's fate was, the mountain would never forget the Bulgarian engineer who defied the odds and achieved the impossible. The story, however, did not end with Christo's final transmission. Years later, in 2004, Everest would claim another member of Christo's family. It's May, and the spring climbing season is in full swing. Teams from all over the world are gathered at Everest's north side in Tibet, braving the same deadly winds, the same risks Christo had faced 20 years earlier. Among them is a small Bulgarian team, led by Ivan Mazarov, the head of the Bulgarian Federation of Alpine Clubs. Alongside him is his wife, Mariana Prodanova Mazarova, Christo's niece. Mariana is there with a single mission, to become the first Bulgarian woman to summit Mount Everest without supplemental oxygen, a tribute to her uncle Christo. For her, it is not just about climbing Everest, it is about completing what Christo had begun, fulfilling the dream he had chased and lost. However, her journey is riddled with signs of trouble from the start. Mariana's pace is painfully slow, often trailing behind the other climbers. Her movements seem erratic, as though the high altitude is affecting her more than it should. Veteran climbers and Sherpas begin to voice their concerns. Even Mingma Dorji, one of the most respected Sherpas in the Himalayas, urges Mariana to turn back. He pleads with her, telling her she isn't strong enough to go further. But Mariana, determined to honor her uncle, ignores their warnings. On May 18th, she begins her final push. The wind howls mercilessly and the ridge narrows. The fixed ladders become battlegrounds, and climbers are forced to slow their progress. By May 21st, exactly 20 years and 30 days after Christo's death, Mariana begins her final push toward the summit. She is alone, no Sherpa by her side, no backup team. Just her and the mountain. The wind lashes against her and her progress becomes more labored with every step. It takes her 13 hours just to reach the second step, an obstacle that had already cost many climbers their lives. The physical strain is taking its toll. She stumbles, her steps become more erratic, and climbers passing her report that she seems distant, almost detached. One word escapes her lips, whispered to no one but the mountain. Summit. At that point, everyone around her can see what Mariana is facing: exhaustion, delirium, and the deadly pull of Everest's death zone. Yet she presses on. As the hours pass, her movements become less coherent. The fatigue, the cold, the thin air, all of it begins to warp her perception. At the second step, the narrowest part of the climb, the wind is so fierce that visibility drops to near zero. Mariana is now completely alone. Her Sherpa had stayed behind, and the climbers below had already voiced their concerns. The decision to push on alone is disastrous. The ridge, already treacherous in broad daylight, becomes a labyrinth of snow and rock in the fading light of evening. Mariana, for all her courage, is simply too weak to continue. She disappears into the storm, swallowed by the vast, unforgiving mountain. Her last steps, so close to her uncle's, would be her final ones. Days later, a Brazilian climbing team making their way up Everest's north face would make a chilling discovery. At nearly 27,000 feet, near the same altitude where Christo had perished 20 years before, they find Mariana's body frozen in place, just as Christo's had been. The bright red cap she wore stood out against the snow, making it impossible for them to miss. To those who knew the story, it felt like the mountain had closed a circle. Two members of the same family, each driven by the same passion, had been claimed by the same deadly slope. Christo's dream, his legacy, had ended here, on the same mountain, in the same place where he had lost his life. Mariana's body remained on Everest, just like Christo's, It was left there, untouched by any recovery team. The West Ridge Direct is still considered too dangerous for such operations. The tragedy of Cristo and Mariana would remain buried with the mountain, their fate sealed by the same dream. Cristo's death was not forgotten, though. Back in Bulgaria, his legacy grew. He was posthumously honored as a national hero, with his image immortalized in statues, schools named after him, and a place in the hearts of his fellow countrymen. His 1984 summit was voted the greatest sporting event of the 20th century in Bulgaria. But the story doesn't end with Cristo's tragic passing. The West Ridge Direct, for all the technological advancements made in the decades since, remains as dangerous as ever. Even with improved gear, better weather forecasting, and a wealth of climbing knowledge, the West Ridge Direct is a near-impossible route. By 2000, only 3 teams had successfully completed any of the routes on the West Ridge, making it statistically harder to climb than even K2, the world's second-highest peak. Cristo, the man who dared what no one else could, remains a part of Everest's unforgiving soul. His body may never be recovered, and the West Ridge Direct may forever be too dangerous to conquer. But in the annals of mountaineering, his name will forever be etched as the man who achieved the impossible. Cristo Prodanov's legacy, despite the tragic and bitter end to his life, lives on in more than just the mountaineering community. His story has inspired generations of climbers, adventurers, and dreamers who understand that the greatest achievements come not without risk, but in spite of it. Cristo's climb up the West Ridge Direct, a route still regarded as one of the most dangerous on Everest, left an indelible mark not only on the mountain, but on the world. In the decades following his death, Everest's reputation as a ruthless and unforgiving mountain was only cemented further. The West Ridge Direct remained an untamed beast, resisting all but the most determined climbers. The few who dared take on the route were met with the same brutal challenges Cristo had faced: exposure, freezing temperatures, the ever-present threat of avalanches, and wind that could tear a person from the mountain in a second. The route became more of a legend than an actual challenge for climbers. Many looked at it and thought, why bother? But for those like Cristo, the challenge itself was the lure. To summit Everest by any other route was to take the easy way out. It was only the West Ridge Direct that offered the true test of a climber's spirit. But Cristo's death, while heartbreaking, was not the end of his impact. In fact, it was the beginning of something much larger. His story reached beyond the narrow confines of mountaineering and spread into the hearts of people from all walks of life. In Bulgaria, Cristo became a symbol of the country's resilience and determination. His face appeared on statues, plaques, and even in schools named in his honor. His climb was voted Bulgaria's most significant sporting event of the 20th century, not because of the records he broke, but because of the sheer human will it represented. A man from humble beginnings who fought against the odds to achieve something that no one thought possible. This was the essence of Cristo's life and the legacy he left behind. In 2004, when Mariana, Cristo's niece, attempted to follow in his footsteps, it felt like the mountain was closing a circle. She was, in a way, the continuation of his dream. But her tragic fate, like her uncle's, showed how even the strongest will could not change the unyielding nature of Everest. Mariana's death, discovered near the same altitude where Cristo had disappeared, felt almost fated. The two had been bound together, not just by blood, but by their shared obsession with the mountain. However, the story of Cristo's legacy does not stop with Mariana. Her attempt to summit Everest was not a failure in the eyes of many. It was a continuation of the spirit Cristo had ignited. While she did not reach the summit, she embodied his courage, his determination, and his unwavering commitment to living a dream. Her journey, like his, was about the quest itself, not just the summit. The ultimate test of a climber's mettle is not how they reach the top, but how they handle the journey to get there. Cristo Prodanov lived for that journey. It was not just the summit of Everest he sought, but the process of pushing human limits to the breaking point. In that way, Cristo succeeded. He lived a life that showed what it means to truly live boldly, to reach for something that seems impossible, and to accept the cost of that ambition. His story, tragic as it was, continues to inspire. It challenges us to think about our own limits, the things we want to achieve, and the risks we are willing to take to get there. Cristo's final climb was a testament to human resilience, and his legacy lives on in the hearts of climbers, adventurers, and dreamers across the globe. It's a story that never truly ends. The West Ridge Direct may remain one of the most dangerous routes on Everest, but Christo Prodanov's spirit has made it immortal. The mountain has claimed many lives since, but Christo's name stands as one of the legends of the mountain, forever etched in the annals of mountaineering history. Christo Prodanov's story, when you look at it in its entirety, is a powerful meditation on ambition, sacrifice, and the drive to reach the impossible. It's a tale of how the mountain can both define and destroy the climber, how the dream to conquer something greater than yourself can pull you to the edge of survival, and sometimes beyond it. The question, however, remains: how should we remember Christo? Should he be seen simply as a tragic figure, the man who died trying to achieve what others deemed impossible? Or should he be remembered for his singular, undying passion for climbing, his ability to push the limits of what was thought achievable, no matter the cost? There's no easy answer to this question. Some would say Christo was reckless, that his ambition led him to a foolish end, but those who knew him, those who understood the heart of a mountaineer, would argue differently. Christo was not reckless. He was driven. He understood the risks, but he believed the reward was worth the price. In his mind, the climb itself was the victory. Regardless of the outcome, his final ascent, his daring push up the West Ridge direct without supplemental oxygen, was not just a quest to reach the summit. It was a challenge against the very nature of human endurance. It was a testament to the strength of the human spirit, the refusal to accept limits, and the desire to push beyond the boundaries of what was possible. And while his body may have fallen on that ridge, his spirit transcended the mountain. For those who have followed in his footsteps, both literally and metaphorically, Christo represents more than just a climber. He represents a spirit of resilience, of daring to dream when the odds are against you, of refusing to let the world tell you what you can or cannot do. His life was a reminder that sometimes the pursuit of a dream is just as important as the dream itself. Christo's legacy is not just about what he accomplished on Everest, but about the message he left behind, that it's not the summit that matters most, but the journey to get there. In a world that increasingly values instant success and shortcuts, Christo reminds us that true achievement is born from relentless pursuit, hard work, and the willingness to take risks. His life serves as a beacon for anyone with the courage to dream big, to take the long road, and to accept that the greatest rewards often come at the highest cost. Even as technology advances and new generations of climbers attempt to conquer Everest in more efficient ways, Christo's story will remain a pillar of inspiration. The West Ridge Direct, though it remains one of the deadliest and most challenging routes on the mountain, still stands as a testament to the indomitable will of those who dare to venture into the unknown. The West Ridge may be a cruel way to the top, but for Christo Prodanov, it was the only way that made sense. And in a way, he succeeded, because his climb was never just about getting to the summit. It was about testing the very essence of what it means to be human, to push, to fall, to rise again, and to accept the consequences of following a dream. Christo may have perished on Everest, but his legacy will live on forever. He was a man who truly lived his dream, and in doing so, showed the world that sometimes the impossible is simply the beginning of something greater. Thanks for watching this incredible story of Christo Prodanov, an adventure that transcends mountaineering. If his journey inspired you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another story from the edge of human endurance. We've got more epic tales lined up that you won't want to miss. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. What part of Christo's legacy moved you the most? See you in the next one, where we'll explore even more stories of triumph and tragedy from the extreme. Stay bold, stay curious, and as always, keep climbing.